Hello and welcome to a new Ostrich review and the start of a new series about aviation engineers. And as you may have noticed, all the Ostrich planes bear the names of a great aviation engineer. And today we are on board of a slightly older version of the 737NG named after Otto Lilienthal. So today I want to talk about this great engineer. Otto Lilienthal was the person who fundamentally influenced the way we build aircraft today, and some would maybe argue without him we wouldn't have airplanes at all. He was the first one to embrace the principle heavier than air, and every aircraft today except hot air balloons or airships fall under this principle. But let's start at the beginning. And Otto Lilienthal was born in 1848 in Anklam, what is a small city on the German Baltic coast. And this area has a big population of stork. And Lilienthal was from begin on fascinated by these birds gliding in the thermals. And it's reported that already in this young age he conducted his first flight experiments together with his brother Gustav. After his school time in Anklam, he moved to Berlin to become an engineer. And during the study time, he and his brother conducted studies how birds fly. And people did this before them, but what was new and the important difference is that they not only watched the birds, but also proved the theories by physical experiments. For example, they constructed this military apparatus you can see here to measure the lift of different surfaces at different angles of attack. And here on the ends you have the different wing surfaces that could be adjusted for different angles of attack. The weights on the side fall down and therefore put the whole arms in rotary motion and move the wing surfaces through the air. And in the middle we have weights connected to the scale and the rotary arms. And when the wings create lift, they reduce the overall downward force of these weights. And so the lift could be read off the scale. And with this very simple device, Lilienthal and his brother could quantify how wing shape and angle of attack determine the lift of a moving surface, and that's basically the fundament of wing design. And around 15 years later, in 1998, Otto Lilienthal published his findings of these experiments in the book Der Vogelflug als Grundlage der Fliegekunst. And the reason why he waited so long to publish was probably very simple financially. He had to pay for printing by himself, and to print the books, make all the illustrations on a printing plate, it was pretty expensive, and it is around the range what a normal worker was earning in a year. So before he could publish, he had to become successful with his engine manufacturing in Berlin first. And this book is really beautiful illustrated, as you can see in this example, what is like this really nice merger of an illustration and a graph. And it's written in a very nice way that creates interest in the topic and that even people without a degree in engineering could easily understand and just get hooked by the topic. And this was also his main intention. He wanted to get a lot of people interested in flight, so that the interest grow, that they conduct own experiments. But on the same way, he didn't cut short on the all-important physics and equations in the book, so that other scientist and engineer was able to redo his experiments and the calculations and verify the findings and bring the science behind it along. Despite all of this and the significance this book has until today, it wasn't a success. I mean, in the first year, only 20 copies sold, and it was mostly ignored because the majority of people at this time didn't believe that an aircraft heavier than air could even fly, and it was well believed that the future of flight would be airships and balloons. But all of this changed in 1891 for the simple reason that Lilienthal didn't only publish his findings, he spent the findings to construct gliders, and in this year he flew for the first time. And people did gliding experiments before him, but he, and this is an important difference, he was the first one who could do it controlled and who was able to repeat the experiments at his will. So he wasn't just falling a bit slower or get tossed around by the wind. He had control over it. And what also helped that he used a very new invention at this time called moment photography to document the flights. And you can see one of these really stunning images here. And it's easy to imagine that this made good headlines all around the newspapers of the world. And so he really get known for this, and this really pushed his findings and the interest in aviation further along. And in the end, he did well over 2,000 flights, covering distances up to 250 meters, and he constructed different types of glider models. His norm glider was also commercially sold, and therefore his machine factory in Berlin became really the first aircraft manufacturer in the world. But unfortunately, on August 9th of 1869, he did his last flight. He was experimenting with stronger winds, as he rightly predicted that faster flow over the wing surface would create more lift and would enable him to fly even faster. But his glider got caught in a powerful updraft, and so the glider pitched up until the angle of attack was too big to create lift anymore, and so one wing dropped and he went into a spin and crashed. And sadly, one day later he died due to his injuries of the crash. And his untimely death ended the experiments, and it is suspected that he maybe also was into further experiments with engine-powered flights. His machine factory was producing small lightweight engines, so it was the next logical step, but he never could go through it. But the important thing is he achieved what he had wished for. He proved that a human flight with an aircraft heavier than air is possible, and he inspired others to follow him. Most notably of them were the Wright brothers, who conducted their own experiments inspired by him, and this led in 1903 to the first engine-powered flight as we all know it. And Wilbur Wright is also quoted to say that Lilienthal's book was the best book printed in the last 20 years, or the last century. That depends a bit on which source you get. That again shows the significance Lilienthal had for aviation. So that was it for today. I hope you found that video interesting and learned a bit more about Otto Lilienthal. If you are interested to learn more, I put some links to some interesting books below, or you also can write your questions in the comments, and I try to answer them as quickly and correctly as possible. And then all that's left to say is thanks for watching, and see you at the next time. Bye bye.